when you're coaching sports people, it's almost similar attributes you need. It's about getting on with people and understanding how people work in terms of their minds. And obviously athletes are different from Joe in the street buying a car, but at the same time they're why they're doing it and the motivations to do it, it's just about getting to that understanding as a coach. And that applies to any sport, I guess. It's been that was what I suppose 2010, so 10 years ago into 2011. I got Saracens, who are the bad boys of rugby at the moment, because they've had their hands slapped for paying players too much money, but they're obviously the most successful English team in Europe, and sort of reigning champions in the Premiership. So most top end rugby clubs run rugby camp programs. So that's school holidays. Kids come along to a whatever rugby club it might be, and the Saracens would be running a rugby camp. So I started doing some work for them. Great thing about rugby coaching, especially if you start working for some of the bigger clubs, is you get piles of free stash, which is to my
bonus.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's always a winner. So that was that, and then so their biggest rival across town is Harlequins, and Harlequins were doing they'd advertised for a part-time job doing some coaching up in South London, which I applied for and did. So that was only about a handful of hours a week. In fact, it probably wasn't actually. By the time I paid for the petrol to get up there and run the set, it was like there's some community-based sessions at rugby clubs. But I thought getting those two names on a CV would actually would help me elsewhere. So lo and behold, having that just for a short period of time on a CV, there was a college in near Tonbridge in Kent called Hadlow College, who are an agricultural college. They had a position for a part-time coach as well. So I find myself with basically 4 part-time jobs at one point in time. Not really they had enough money to get by, but so those first sort of 2-3 years of rugby coaching were tough financially. There's a lot of travelling involved, and by the time I paid for petrol, I probably wasn't netting much money out of it. But I enjoyed it, and it's and community coaching. So we sort of doing stuff in schools and doing stuff for the kids. It was amazing, and then working. So Harlequins then started giving me more and more work in terms of their community stuff. So I ran a project called Urban Rugby Squads over a summer holiday. There was a player, it was a he's now a rugby pundit on BT Sport called Ugo Monye. He was just retiring, so I worked with him on that project, which was quite nice to actually work with a professional or an ex-professional rugby player. I then also worked with another ex-pro called Jordan Turner Hall. Both of these guys had, Harlequins through and through, but they don't England caps, and so talking to they're looking at the world they existed in. And rugby's a funny one because you think they earn millions and millions, well they don't. I mean, obviously your footballers at the world earn an absolute fortune, but your pro rugby players are, I suppose at that point in time, it was the average salary in the Premiership was about 80-90 grand a year, which is quite still a nice salary, but you're never going to be able to retire off the back of that. So a lot of these guys, when they finish their rugby careers, a lot of them, and because the nature of the sports, obviously, it's an impact sport, a lot of them have to retire prematurely. Unless they've been very, very savvy with their money, they've got to find work elsewhere. And so Jordan now is head of rugby at a private school up in Ipswich. But he had a bit of a torrid time of it after retiring, and it was interesting to see how he coped. And I actually sort of, was just a friendly face to talk to over a period of months with him. He was because bear in mind that they were treated within the academies at the big clubs. Everything's done for them. So everything from, I suppose, booking a dentist appointment through to applying for a passport, there was somebody at the club who would do it for them, so they could then focus on, being an athlete and performing on a pitch. But their life skills were a little bit lacking. I think it's still a bit different. But so yeah, it's been so. I was then well and truly on the path to be involved with rugby coaching. So then I got. So there's two aspects of what I do now. So there's community coaching. So I run the community department for Richmond's, and I've been there for 3 years. And I got to the point with Harlequins, I was working for them full time. And so Richmond are, the model is like a traditional rugby club. So they have membership on a Sunday of kids aged from 5 all the way up to 18. So they have dads volunteering who run those age groups, and they do it slightly differently. When the kids are sort of get to teenage age, they actually bring in an outside coach to run the age group, because you tend to find with parents and dads and a lot of politics comes into play.
Yeah, I bet.
It's that thing about the kids playing football, isn't it? And then those dads on a Sunday or a Saturday shouting at their kids from the touchline. Rugby is very proud of the fact that they have this sort of element of respect with referees and everything else, but you still do get those dads on a Sunday hollering at their 12-year-old kid like it's the World Cup or something, and it's and lo and behold, kids don't respond to that sort of pressure. It's so we tend to take that a lot of the responsibility away from them. I mean, they're still involved with some of the volunteer dads, but so that's part of my role, is overseeing that. But we do a lot of schoolwork. We delivered rugby coaching into 12 different primary schools in and around Richmond upon Thames.
Right.
So that's non-contact tag rugby. So it's just kids before school or after school running around with one of our coaches, and then we also help. We target state schools to do rugby coaching in, because we have. Rugby in reality to football is minute, and in comparison to other sports as well, in terms of its participation. And a lot of it is down to parents perceive it as being a little bit dangerous because of the tackling and everything else. A lot of it is historically it's a bit of an elitist sport. Obviously, a lot of the private schools play it and put a lot of resource behind their rugby programs. So state schools don't have the resource, but also to run a rugby team, you can't just do it with a PE teacher, because you've got 15 players, 8 of those are forwards, the guys who play in the scrum and do the line-outs and everything else, and then the other 7 are a different skill set to a certain extent. Guys in the backs, and we do an awful lot of school work with the state schools, and then a lot of our work is funded by pots of money from UK Sport England and London Sport and other stuff, and but then I also, in addition to that, I'm involved with the Richmond senior setup, so the men's team. So I look after what they call it's known as the Richmond Saxons. So Richmond have 5 men's teams. So they've got about just over 130 registered men playing rugby at the club.
Right.
Yeah, so
it's a lot.
Yeah, so we train twice a week. Even our first team aren't full time; they're only part time. We up to this coming season, we were the only part time team in the championship. Everybody else was professional. And that's part of the reason why we think we got relegated, because we got there on merit, but pretty much sort of survived at the bottom end of the table for 3 seasons and then got relegated, and then they've come back up again. So but the whole model at Richmond is about just people not only putting their bodies on the line on a Saturday, but it's also the sort of social aspect around it. It's got a real community feel about the whole place. It's and I started off by saying I'm privileged to have a full-time job in rugby. I wish I listen. If I was, I'm not doing it for the money, because you don't get paid a fortune. But it's if I wanted to chase the pound, I'd be back selling cars, I think. But But maybe not right here, right now in COVID-19 Britain. There's not.
Exactly.
The economy is there. It's so that's another thing. We don't know when rugby's coming back. It's two things about rugby is A, there's a lot of physical contact, and B, there's a large social element. So neither of the two things are on the table at the moment.
Yeah, absolutely. It's an amazing story, my friend. Amazing story there. And my hat's off to you for going to something completely different, but also chasing something that you're kind of passionate about. And I think
there's a few cliches can come out about that as well. But I think it would have been easy for me to have quitted early on and not money and having 4 different jobs and all that. And I think you just got to have the courage of your convictions if you're passionate about doing something. And the old cliche, it's better to have tried and failed than never to have tried at all, and all that sort of stuff. But I honestly believe that if you internally, as anybody, can, if you set your mind to it and you put yourself in the right environment, then the opportunities will come. Will come.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think to that point, I think there's so many people I've known over the years of various workplaces that I've been in, one in particular, where people often will have dreams or stuff they want to pursue, but what always comes back, unfortunately, is just that comfortable kind of nature in people as well. And the sort of change aspect is just, it almost seems like it's far too greater than to try something than it is to just stay comfortable and know what's going to happen. I think it's that laser vision kind of thing. When I remember, and when you was talking about working in the schools, the something I've been doing recently, but in football, I've been coaching kids up in the Stratford area, and only recently as well. But it was something, although I'm quite passionate about football, it was something coaching. I hadn't really dived into it all that much, but they were really lacking anybody to go and do a couple of sessions every, a couple of times a week. So I said, sure, throw me in. And then I realized that I was going to get the most challenging kids possible that they were sending to me. But you know what? I absolutely loved it because, I looked at all these other teachers around me and they were like, you won't enjoy this. They'd obviously had some terrible experiences. But I think I'm
going to touche you here. See, sorry to talk over you, but
that's fine.
2 years ago, I got so I was living down. I live in Surrey now, but I was living down in Kent still. So I was commuting up to southwest London every day on the glorious M25, and sort of a bit of a Radio 5 listener. And there was a woman called Professor Rosie Meeks was interviewed. She's a professor of criminology at Royal Holloway University, and she was talking about rehabilitation through sport, so linking kids who are either in prison or in pupil referral units or just fall on the wrong side of the tracks, linked up with gangs and all that sort of stuff, and what sport can do, and again non-sport specific, but just sport generically can do for kids. So I was acutely aware we had. It's quite famous for the wrong reasons. A youth offenders institution called Feltham on our doorstep. Right. It's been in the press a little bit with prison guards being beaten up and all that sort of stuff. And it's one of those 1960s, 1970s monolith, horrible concreted.
Wow.
It's so. But anyway, I got in contact with them, and then coincidentally there was one of the directors at Richmond Rugby Club run a sort of a literacy charity in there, so buying books and all that sort of stuff. So that in Feltham they have kids from 15 to 18, and then there's another cohort of 18 to 21 year olds. Right. And would you believe there was no that they have a gym in there, and they have sport fields, they have a football pitch and a rugby pitch, but the 15 to 18 year olds still have to be in full-time education.
Right.
So bearing in mind if you've ended up in there in the first place, what you must have done to have ended up in there, And the chances are you fell out of school a long time ago, you know.
Yeah.
So the challenges they have getting those lads, and then they have to segregate them by gangs, so they can't mix the rival gangs together because it all kicks off. So they've got massive challenges inside there in terms of that, especially the 5th